people pay to be knowingly hoodwinked. And I think when we talk about labels and that accuracy of labels, we want to see our world through those rose-colored glasses.
Candid conversations that might just change how you look at the world. Let's bridge cultures, transcend borders, and build a global family of changemakers. Welcome to If by Chance.
Thank you for joining me for what is the season finale. Today you'll hear from Ben Sorensen, an Australian comedian who also happens to be autistic. And during this conversation, Ben shares his filter-free views with the occasional F-bomb and dry Aussie wit.
I am basically a voice and personality for hire, I think is an easy way to describe it. I always struggle with that. Most of what I do is hosting live events, interviews, panels. I also do quite a lot of voiceovers and studio work for radio and TV, and all sorts of videos and things like that. And then I do a little bit of brain work as far as game development and putting together my own touring shows. So it keeps me busy, but I don't know, I suppose you could probably just label me as an entrepreneur, which I think is also a bit of a dirty word these days. Almost as abused as professional. I think it's interesting. So I can't work for anyone else. I'm a really terrible employee. So it was just about, working out how I can extract a living from this world by doing something that is uniquely me, not copying anyone else, and still deriving a livable wage that works around, my brain, how it works, and the downtime that I need.
Tell me more about being a terrible employee.
I have case studies.
Do share.
Oh, dear. So, look, I struggle with the concept of output equals time, and work expands to fill time, plus more time that you're not paid for because of poor management. So we have a culture in Australia where we promote people that are really good at their jobs into roles where they manage people, but people managing is a different skill altogether to the job that you're actually doing or those people are doing. And we aren't educating people well enough moving into those roles to be great people managers. We're just going, oh, well, you're a great sales rep, so now you're a sales director. Congratulations. And then you get whatever ignorance, bad habits, or 2-second Google search management styles come with that.
So is that your employee story of being promoted as a manager?
It's internally witnessing some of those bits and pieces, and also being part of those bits and pieces. I'm way too much of an independent thinker and outspoken to be promoted into a management position of any sort. I do not toe the company line. However, I am very focused and very good. It feels like a job interview now. Very focused and very good at getting outcomes, but not particularly good at politicking. So politicking, I see as something that is more important these days as an employee. And also, I'm going to start work at 10 because my brain doesn't kick in till then because of my autism. No, you must start at 8 and you must finish at 5 o'clock. And if your work is not done, you will finish at 7. I struggle with that, and doing that 5 days a week is something that doesn't work for me. Can I provide the same amount of output as a 9-to-5 employee? Yes, absolutely. But I just need to do it in my own way. And when we talk about autistic people in the workforce, and we talk about ADHD people in the workforce, when we talk about, or disabled people, which is a terrible term, in the workforce. We see, different accommodations that are needed. However, most of the time the output is the same, if not more, with the same, if not less, resources. But we still have a lot of companies ordering people to come back to the office, ordering people to do this, wanting to micromanage, even though it's contrary to all of the data that we have on employees and workplaces. And that was part of the problem with, corporate Australia is going, well, I want to look at you while you work to make sure that you are working, even though your output is fine. And I don't want you to be, picking up your dry cleaning halfway through the day, because that means I could be extracting, 5 minutes more work out of you. When we look at, even if we look at our fiscal structure for a lot of our businesses, we see the need for, 15, 20% growth year on year on year on year. How's that sustainable? Where does it end? How much is enough? And we see a lot of companies now, particularly in key industries, going into voluntary administration. Is that because they're not profitable? Probably not. Part of that is because they're not making profit year after year. They're not making that additional profit year after year after year, which you can't do. Are we suffering from inflation or simply just greed? All great questions that I do not have the answer to. And all great questions that make me a terrible employee.
And what was school like for you?
Oh, that was, look, the more I look back at it, the worse I think it was. At the time, because I socially I don't have, or I had even less skills then, didn't notice a lot of stuff, which is kind of a protection mechanism in itself. But I think in some ways I was kind of lucky to go to a couple of smaller country schools, simply because, I think at the time autism didn't exist unless you were, another terrible term, low functioning. And when we talked about, non-visible disabilities, the focus was very much not on the individual, but how can we minimize everyone else's challenges or uncomfortableness with that? And that's a theme that sort of goes through workplaces, that goes through society, and it's starting to change. But it's, it's still something that is very, very prominent. And the first go-to for everyone is, well, you don't look autistic, you don't feel autistic. Okay, yeah, that's great. That's because I'm masking and unable to be me. And I think that, to a very, very tiny extent, I feel somewhat of an empathy and understanding or a kinship with a lot of women, because their entire life they don't have, autism. Well, some women do, but they don't have that. But women are pushed and forced to mask every day of their life. So, I think as a straight white man, my autism has given me a little taste and a wonderful empathetic insight into part of the challenges of inequality in Australia.
Can we talk a little bit more about masking?
Yeah, totally.
It's something that I have heard, and I've never heard anybody with autism relate it to a female experience. But
Yeah.
what?
So,
and I think that's because being female, you're right, we do modify our behaviours in certain situations to get through.
And also, just to be super, super clear, my linking those two is not to detract or take away from the experience of being female or saying that I know what it's like. It's a kindness and an understanding and an empathy going that we have some serious inequality issues in the world, and nobody wins from inequality. So please take everything I say as a positive.
Sure. So tell me more about masking.
Okay.
It's something that I've wanted to ask about, but I've felt like it wasn't okay for me to ask.
So masking is a really interesting concept. So and look, to a certain extent, some people do it more than others. And masking is about altering your output to match whatever is easiest to navigate the world around you. So for me, it's learning to rewire, suppress, and delay tics, developing coping mechanisms in situations that I'm overstimulated with, making lifestyle changes permanently so that I can manage my energy so that I can invest more energy in masking to survive a world that is not built for me. It's highlighting situations where I naturally might want to do something and doing something completely different.
So how do you find a situation like this? Is doing an interview like this draining for you?
That's also another question. If it was my first interview, yeah, probably. But because it's not, I've developed for most of what I do, I've developed frameworks in my head to rationalize it, to make sense of it, to understand what I need to do, how much energy I'm going to need for it, to manage that side of it. So I have a framework for Zoom interviews. I have a framework for face-to-face interviews. I have a framework for events. I have a framework for shoot days and TV. So I have, when I didn't have that, yes, super draining. Do the call, go have a nap. Now, because I have that framework and I've honed it and I've worked it out over time, and also I'm not 20, so I was actually having that conversation with a friend the other day going, I feel like I'm a little late to the party, but I'm just starting to get my shit together. But it took longer because I had all these frameworks to build and hone that only worked for me in my head and how my brain is wired, because yours is wired differently. The next autistic person's is wired differently. You know, we got some rough rules and rough ideas, but you've still got to do it yourself. There's no escaping that, as much as we'd all love to.
And when did comedy appear in your life?
Purely by accident, because of how my brain works. So that is part of masking. So because I'm super observant and I see different things to everyone else, that makes observational comedy and crowd work natural for me. They're normally the uncomfortable, awkward things that a weird autistic person would say in a conversation. But when you give someone a mic and you add context and bucket load of trauma and the experience and training, suddenly you get something that's endlessly and relatively interesting as far as comedy goes.
How old were you when you first stepped on a stage to do comedy?
Well, I didn't step on a stage to do comedy to start with. I actually started singing and dancing in vaudeville shows. So I have this weird switch in my head that challenges me. It's so stupid, but it's there. That challenges me to do difficult things. So I had no social skills. So what was appealing in my logical head to having no social skills was scripted work. I don't have to worry about social skills and it's scripted. So I can read it and I can think about it and I can understand the interaction and I can see the different layers and I can take time to actually understand what this interaction is. That's why we see a lot of autistic people that are actually quite good at acting, because we've got the processes to do it. It's not intuitive. Social stuff's not intuitive to us. It's all a conscious cognitive thought going, okay, your face says this means that. These are the things that could mean. I'm going to narrow that down and try and work with it. It's all conscious. So when I started, that was singing and dancing in a touring vaudeville show was wonderful. It was back in the day, it was called Maureen's Music Hall Melodies. And we went around and did terrible dinner and show deals. But beautiful people. I learnt a lot. And even though I didn't have the label of autism, it was very, very clear that I was different. And one of the things that I love about touring performers is they don't care. Oh, you're different. You're a bit weird. Whatever. That's fine. That's just you. You know, oh, you need to have a lie down at halftime. All right. That's fine. Off you go. That's just his thing. He'll be fine. I'll just make sure we'll just keep an eye on him and wake him up when the bell goes for act 2 or, whatever. Very, very accommodating. And that's part of where my conscious kindness concept came in. When we talk about having capacity for kindness, and we talk about also having accommodations for disabled people, the actual end point of that is we should have accommodations for everyone. Because if everybody has those accommodations, they're able to work better with less energy in the way that works for their brain best, which means they have a greater capacity for kindness, which means everybody gets along better. We have less pettiness and more actual solutions, and we all are actually able to be a better version of ourselves.
Given that, what's your opinion on labels?
Jude Pearl is a dead set genius and a wonderful musician, a wordsmith, and a beautifully brilliant comedian. She has a song about labels. So the concept of a label, as outlined in her song and also in real life, is the same as a diagnosis for an illness. It's a bunch of behaviors or a bunch of things that we group together, and we put a dirty great big sticker on it, and that communicates very quickly all of those little things under it. Labels are really great if people understand what the label means, if you understand what the label means, and if the label is accurate. So keep using the label while it's accurate, and if it's not accurate, don't use it. We see blanket terms out there, and I think, like when I tell people, oh, look, I'm autistic, I'm having a bit of a rough day. When we talk about beginning to unmask, autistic, having a bit of a rough day, just letting you know. And they go, yeah, autistic, yep. Disabled, yep, cool. Accepting, really, really good. Why are you being such an asshole? Why are you being so direct? Or, why are you being super logical? Can't you tell that I'm feeling stuff? Oh, you're just so horrible. I'm like, no, I'm not being horrible, not intentionally. That's the autism there, because I'm being super logical and I don't have capacity to process anything other than what's happening. So they will hear the words, understand, oh yes, disabled or different, don't actually understand what's behind the word or what that means or what that could look like or how that could affect them or anything. So in that sense, we talk about labels not working particularly well. And when we dish out a label, sometimes it's handy to give like dot points with it as well. And then when we start doing labels and dot points to upskill the people in our world, a lot of times we find they're not that interested. And that's okay,
And autism, it is such a wide spectrum.
Giant umbrella. Couple of holes in it, but generally a giant umbrella. And it's in a bigger umbrella which is neurodiverse. And these days I'm starting to use neurodiverse as the go-to term because it is a label that has so many more labels under it that I feel like neurologically typical people or normal and inverted commas people go, oh, hang on, not sure what to expect. So anything goes here, which is more helpful than, you've got autism. I don't really know what that means, but I know it's a thing. You know, expecting the unexpected, I think is, if you don't know what the label means, is kind of handy from an NT perspective, in my experience. Anecdotal only. No peer-reviewed research.
You mentioned kindness before. You said conscious kindness.
Yeah,
Why do
absolutely.
you make that distinction?
So when we talk about conscious kindness, if your cup is empty, kindness is very conscious and very expensive, and normally comes with a giant lukewarm side dish of resentment. Whereas if we engineer our world consciously to have our cup a little bit fuller, or full, heaven forbid, then our ability to extend those kindnesses to people in our world is way easier. It's not expensive, it's relatively cheap. And most of the time, you don't really care either way. Best sort of kindness. Because then we can move from conscious, expensive kindness to something that becomes more intuitive as time goes on. But the concept of conscious kindness, if you have capacity, how wonderful is it to consciously go, do you know what? I can see that you're having a really rough day, so I'm going to let you go in front of me in the queue. Or I can see that you're struggling with something, so I'm just going to buy you a cup of coffee. Or, you know, I'm not going to I know that you're stressed and I know that's your job, but I can help you with that today. And that's going to make your world better. So suddenly we have all of these little angels, little knights in shining armor everywhere, helping each other, doing all these tiny little things, not for gratitude or thanks or a TikTok, just because we can. And they're sneaky little things that make us feel good. And we can do it because we've consciously engineered our life to have capacity to do that, because we are not the ones with the empty cup. We're able to help others so that their cup isn't as empty. And hopefully, we can lead by example and one day encourage that person who has the empty cup to have a cup that's fuller.
Do you think you'd be still capable of conscious kindness if you were still an employee?
Oh, that's a really great question. I do not. Do you know what? Short answer: no, no, because the concept of being an employee is not to have a full cup. The idea is your employer drains it, and your employer feels like they get, because we have a broken system. Your employer feels like they get better value out of you if you're dying on the inside. Am I going to employ an extra staff member at $100 and something thousand a year so that you don't have to do overtime and you can take holidays? I am saving $100,000 a year, and you're currently doing all that extra work for free. So what makes my numbers look better on the spreadsheet? I wonder if we could tweak it so that we could use you a bit more. How many places have you worked out that don't actually solve problems but have Band-Aid workarounds that staff just know because we're not going to fix the problem? You know,
A lot.
To the point where I was at an expo the other day, and I'm not even going to say which one it is. And there was I was talking to one of the IT people from a major hospital, and were new to the role. And when they came into the role, they had this this book of standard operating procedures that had been written for, when this problem happens, because it happens a lot, you do this and then open that program and do this and do that to get you this. But then in the process of that, you're also going to wreck this, which means you've got to go back in and fix X, Y, Z. So they had a whole book of rubbish like that. And this new person walked in and went, you do know that the core software you're using is installed incorrectly and set up wrong, which is why you need these books and books and books of this. Nobody thought about that. So they employed 1.5 extra staff members because of the additional time overall from an operational point of view for the additional time, simply because everyone was focused on, just fix Band-Aid, 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 rather than how can we actually look at what works best? Oh, I've actually looked at the core problem. It's installed wrong. Right. Well, we can fix that. We can get rid of all of these rules and operating procedures and this, that, and the other so that we can just do the thing we're here to do.
It seems like you're pretty good at noticing details around you in life.
Sometimes that is a advantage. Many times it is not.
I imagine in the workplace it must have been very draining for you
Yeah,
to notice all of these things.
and a lot of these are really easy fixes that nobody wants to do. And there's a lot of ego involved. I love learning. I love finding out kindly and constructively that there's a more efficient way for me to do something. I'm like, bang, there, love it. Silly me for doing it the wrong way, or that was the best way. But then when I look at it, that's in society, we don't really understand the scientific process particularly well. And we go, oh, science is always changing its mind. And I go, no. The scientific process is what we're using at the moment is the best that we have found. And we will continue to use this until we find something better. And when we find the better thing, guess what? We're going to use that while we keep looking for a better thing again. And loosely, that's how my brain kind of works.
So I have someone quite close to me in my life who also notices the details around them and notices problems and wants to offer fixes.
Yep.
And has a very direct way of advising people what's wrong, what should be fixed,
Which is
how their behaviour
horrific in a
needs
relationship.
to change.
Horrific.
And I've had to explain that perhaps they should think about it like medicine. Some people are very good at taking their medicine straight, and other people need to take it with a spoonful of sugar.
Yep. And I guarantee you that this person would go, well, both of those people will still take the medicine if you hold their nose and shove it down their gullet.
But they might not want to take the next dose, is what I explained.
True. But they will after they see the benefits of the medicine that I have given them forcibly down their gullet while holding their nose.
Yes. So when you view the world in a very black and white way.
And then the benefits, there should be no resistance then once you see the benefits. But there is.
Yeah.
And it's taken me heaps and heaps of time and failures and all sorts of stuff to work that out. And I still get it wrong. Absolutely still get it wrong. And ironically, the process in my head is I notice more details and I want to fix things and help more when I care.
Do you do more sizing up of people these days using your very strong analytical and observational skills to work out who you're dealing with and how you might need to deliver the medicine?
Look, I think probably a little bit. I think I size people up mainly now for humor, comedy, and what style of humor would they like? What things are they into that I could make jokes about to connect with? You know, do you look like you're a sporty person? Shall I make some sport puns, some sport references? Or, you know, are you into reading romance novels, or do you like movies, or what can I do? So I do that sort of sizing up. to sort of work out where that connection is. Because what I've found is, medicine or not, being good at your job or not, we want to work with people we like. Even if they're a dismal failure, we want to work with people we like, which is the most heartbreaking thing for an autistic person to hear. Because likability is totally, totally subjective. Output or efficiency or all those things, I can work that out. I can absolutely work that out. And I've got a better shot at being able to, deliver X result or fix X problem, or at least demonstrate that I'm working towards fixing X problem, whatever it is. But do you like me? Fuck, I don't know. I can't even tell what the expression on your face is. How do I know what's happening behind it? Or, who your friends are. What's your social network? What are you trying to extract out of me? How are you manipulating me? Like, I don't know any of that.
So, who do you like to surround yourself with?
Pot plants. Do you know what? I actually quite seriously adore nature and its unspoken majesty and how it works together. I absolutely adore animals and their ability to communicate with each other and also us without words. I find that so wonderful. And the innate love and kindness that animals can show you is just so beautiful. But outside of that, talky things like humans, I don't know. I have a lot of, people I spend time with that are on the spectrum. I don't have a huge amount of close friends, and I don't really go and hang out with people. And I don't know if part of that is because I put so much energy into work that most of my downtime at the moment is spent sleeping, sleeping or traveling to the next gig. Or if it's because, I can find that those situations problematic. Also, my work, unusually to most people, is what most people do in their time off. So you'll go to work, and then what will you do? You go to a show afterwards, or you go out for dinner, or you go to a music festival, or you'll go to an event. Whereas, 6-7 days a week, I'm doing dinners, events, and all that sort of stuff. So, I'm still trying to work that one out, but it kind of feels like I'm getting plenty of social time. Is it meaningful or superficial? Probably superficial. But then when I look at the majority of neurologically typical relationships and friendships, most of them are superficial as well, So still working that out. Don't really understand a chunk of that. I feel like I've got okay social skills at arm's length and okay social skills for work, but interpersonal stuff that's a bit closer, I think I've got a lot of learning to do, and I'm still working on that. And I find that very challenging because it's a different framework to the point where there probably isn't a framework, whereas work stuff there is, like, what you can and can't do and the transactional nature of it.
When it comes to transactional nature, I was going to use the word funnily, but it's not funny. Some of the guests I've interviewed recently, they had large, what they thought were social circles and social networks. And then something happened in their life. And then after that, everyone disappeared.
There's a difference between friends and compliance.
I also feel that for men, in a lot of cases, they tend to build networks as opposed to friendships.
Yeah, that's fair.
And sometimes they mistake them as friendships.
Oh, going back to labels, people love to mislabel things, and I think that is also a disadvantage, but also an advantage of being autistic. Is right from the start, we tend to label things relatively honestly and relatively correctly. But if your whole label system isn't accurate and someone comes in with an accurate label, that's going to mess up your entire system. The quote that's been floating in my head, which may escape very soon, is from P.T. Barnum, the circus guy from The Greatest Showman. Well, it's not from The Greatest Showman. The Greatest Showman was about him.
Yeah.
People pay to be knowingly hoodwinked. And I think when we talk about labels and that accuracy of labels, we want to see our world through those rose-colored glasses. We want to be knowingly hoodwinked as opposed to seeing the reality of it.
So my first recollection of being told what being autistic meant was when I was in a kindergarten, and there was a child there that was constantly lining up cars
Mm-hmm.
and toy cars, and that's just what they liked to
Yep.
do all day.
Dig that. Good choice.
And yet I'm listening to you, and you seem to have a very diverse experience. You're very knowledgeable. You don't come across as someone who fixates.
Look, I do.
Is that
I just so when I was growing up, this didn't have a name. I was reinventing the wheel, right? And thankfully, I was a little bit smarter than the average bear. So with no support, or largely no support, reinventing the wheel meant me going, okay, well, everyone else doesn't seem to have the issues that I have. They don't think about the stuff that I do. What areas am I weakest in? And then my genius idea, which is also my downfall, was because I can hyperfixate on things, what if I hyperfixated on my area of weakness? Maybe, just maybe, that might bring it up to a passable normal level. I thought, genius, Ben, that's so great. What a top idea. So now I have a very social career that is all about social skills and interacting with people. When you hyperfixate on stuff, sometimes you don't know when to stop. And I do a lot in the pop culture, esport and gaming world. And everyone says, oh, what game are you playing? None, because I would lose myself in the game. I haven't worked out how to turn it on and off. I haven't worked out how to stimulate it, but I do know when the dopamine's there, and if it's a good thing that you're focusing on, do it, get it out the way. So part of my life management is do it now. If I can do it now while I'm interested in my, the Eye of Sauron's on it, great, do it, get it out the way, tick it off. Otherwise, it'll sit on a to-do list for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, even though it's only a 2-minute job. Logic does not come into that, which is so frustrating. So yes, I can hyperfixate. And part of that is that masking as well. So the things I hyperfixate on, you probably don't notice. And I think for autistic people, it's important to have and create safe spaces where they can be unmasked and they can line up cars and they can play Lego. It doesn't matter what age you are, you still enjoy what you enjoy. And you don't have to monitor or stress or worry about what the rest of the world is thinking. Not that I do to a huge extent anyway, but I used to. And I understand that a lot of autistic people do, and a lot of neurodiverse people do as well. And they sense and still feel quite a lot of shame in being different, which is also a cultural issue that we have in our society.
certainly is. I've had a lot of conversations where
Me too. Not all of them went well.
We've discussed the fact that when we were at school, we were told that we weren't good at certain things and therefore we should concentrate on those things. And now the other train of thought is that we should really be focusing on our strengths.
So, economics.
Is that what you've done though?
So, economics is, I love economics as well. Okay. I think it's fascinating. Economics can teach us heaps about who we are and different concepts for thinking. And, one of the terms that I really, really enjoy is the point of diminishing return.
Mm-hmm.
Physics also has that as well, where the amount of energy you put into something returns less. So when we look at focusing on our weaknesses, that's cool. There'll come a time where you're at a point where, putting extra in is really not going to give you that much benefit. And if you enjoy it, great, do it. But if it's a challenge for you, okay, well, you're at a base level. What else can we do now? And we
That's a
also
really good way.
see a lot of things as linear, or if I do this, then I'll get that. Or if I focus on this, I can't focus on that. Whereas how I see, I used to see things sort of like that in sort of a siloed way. I now tend to see things as sort of a matrix. So I can still be working on some of my strengths or playing to my strengths while working on some of the areas that I'm a little bit deficient in. Life is never so simple. You always have many, many balls in the air. You're always going to drop a few, but 10-second rule, just pick them up, keep going. And then eventually, and sometimes you might only have 2 or 3 balls. You go, oh, wow. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's happened? It's weird. And just enjoy it. One of the happiest and saddest lines that echoes in my head that provides the most comfort and discomfort is this too shall pass. And I think the more I look at it and the more I try and overanalyze and think about it, the more I feel the benefit is having comfort and confidence, not empty confidence, but a superficial toxic positivity confidence, but just an awareness that you are stuck with yourself, and lying to yourself helps no one, because the only person that you want to help is you. Not in a terrible way, like, I'm out to get everyone. But if you don't deal with your own trauma, everyone else will have to. If you don't have capacity to be kind, you're going to be the asshole emptying everyone's cup. And it's not being emptied into yours. It's just spilt on the floor. Useless. So by having that, I don't know, resilience, that internal awareness, you tend to see, I tend to see things as a matrix and as a cycle, as opposed to that's a finish point, that's an end point. Never ends. More shit comes. You swap one set of problems for a different set of problems. And having that anticipation or understanding that not like, oh, I've made it, that's it, I think provides better management of energy and setting of expectations.
Where does your confidence and inner resilience come from?
Trauma. 100%. Poor social, having to sit through and live through negative social interactions, messing things up, saying the wrong thing, attaching the wrong tone to it, and making so many horrific mistakes in the past.
It seems like such a journey from trauma to confidence.
Well, it's picking up skills and understanding, and also seeing through a lot of the smoke and mirrors, not only of yourself, but also of others. And also, I talk about all this stuff. I'm absolutely not perfect. Please do not assume that I've made it or this is the end point. No, I'm still trudging through the mud in the trenches with this, but nobody talks about it. So I'm talking about my knee-deep mud in the trenches. And, I was fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time with Edward de Bono. And one of the things that he said was good, but not good enough. So just because we say, oh, wow, look at how far I've come. Isn't that great? Awesome. Yes, you've come a long way. Amazing. Do you have a long way to go? Yes. Yes, I do. So it's important to pat yourself on the back a little bit for the struggles you've overcome, the journey that you've taken so far. But that doesn't mean you stop walking. That doesn't mean you stop journeying. It just means that, you've hit a different milestone and you're on to the next one.
With all that trauma, why don't you see yourself as a victim?
Because no one gives a shit. No one cares. And how does being a victim help me? Does that help process anything? Does it help me move forward? Does it help me learn new skills? Does it help me, what does it help me do? And look, sometimes if I'm sad or depressed or whatever, normally when the pills have worn off, prescription, being clear, sure, you go, you start comparing yourself to others and you go, oh, if I was really good at politicking or I had have studied this instead of that, perhaps, I'd be shit at what I did, but I'd be further along or whatever. This too shall pass. There are many roads that lead to Rome. There's a million adages that will, both help and hinder. And I think going on that journey and having that awareness is key. I spend a fair bit of time trying to process and understand things, and I think that's helpful. And in some ways, I live a bit too much in my head. But then, in other ways, I think I kind of have to. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, good. I love side quests.
Where would you like to take the conversation from here?
Oh, you had our conversation cards. I didn't write any.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
Look, there's topical stuff which I find really fascinating when we talk about the current awareness of autism. We see a lot of support for kids with autism in schools, and there's funding and all sorts of stuff. But the second you turn 18, boom, all gone. Zero supports, good luck, see you later. And even the NDIS concept of applying for funding every year, if the NDIS gods smile upon you and bestow you with something, you have to reapply. And then you have to say, well, things like, well, has your disability improved or not improved? Do you still have your disability, or has the money we've given you fixed your disability? No, my leg hasn't grown back. I still have one leg. Or no, I still have autism. It's there for life. So there's still a lot of ableist concepts that are there. There's also cost-saving concepts that are there disguised as ignorant questions.
Such as?
If we make the NDIS really hard to get, less people will use it and it will be cheaper. There may have been a previous government that had a concept like that they tried to employ. Now, I'm not saying that the Irish have a great saying that I love. It doesn't matter who you vote for, the government always wins. So left, right, up, down, green, black, red, whatever, blue. The issue that we struggle with with politics and equity and equality in our society doesn't come from left or right, doesn't come from rich or poor. It comes from a mismanaged development of national culture. Most societies and cultures we have rich people and not so rich people. And most societies you have to pay tax to cover communal resources that are required. You know, roads, libraries, in great places, education and health as well. Crazy idea. And it is the culture that dictates what a politician can get away with. It is a culture that dictates what a business can get away with doing and not doing. And when we have ignorant, greedy, late-stage capitalists that are only out for themselves, that will never have enough, that erodes that culture over time. So I think, and again, I don't have the answers, but I think that developing positive cultures and consciously developing cultures that are resilient and work for everyone, that are based on data, not I just hate people, I think that's a positive way forward, not just for autistic people or disabled people, but for everyone. You know, we see a lot of data, homeless people. That's a wonderful example that I use. So many people, if you look at the keyboard warriors on the internet, go, oh, they should just pull up their bootstraps and work harder and blah, 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 blah. Most of us are only 2 bad decisions away from being homeless. We forget how easy it is to be homeless or to not have a job or to not have any of the things that we have. Like insurance, wouldn't you want a little bit of a safety net for everyone? But then we also see from Scandinavian countries, they have plenty of data there. If you are homeless there, they will give you a home. They will help find you work. They will give you education. They will give you healthcare. Because the data says the faster I can get this human back up and on their feet and doing their own thing, whatever that is, fiscally, the more they can contribute financially to society through taxes and spending and all of these other things that we say are important in a capitalist society. However, over here and in the US and many other countries, we go, I'm not going to give homeless people anything. Okay, well, that's not capitalist. That's just you being an asshole. Because the data says capitalism is about profit and return on investment, loosely. So the best way to do that is to actually invest in these homeless people, work out what the problem is, the societal issue, and get them up and performing again. Help them out. Nothing wrong with that. And it's a cost-effective way of doing it, but we're not in that stage. And I think the conversation we're having is mislabeled. Why do we hate people that aren't us? Why is that our culture? Why do we not want to help people? Like we're seeing male violence against women. Why is like guys wake up in the morning and, hey, here's an idea, just don't kill anyone. You know, feeling angry, great. Go see a psychologist. That's not good for you either. You know, but we see this culture of I hate people that aren't me and poor me, I am the victim. When really, I mean, in a lot of cases, there are actual victims, and how you spin it to get through that is totally up to the individual and, you know, how best that serves them. But I think there's also a lot of perpetrators that have victim mentality. And I think that's also a challenge as well. And those people also need some help and assistance to get through that. Because sometimes living in your own head without a reference point for everyone is really challenging. But one of the big social issues that we have is trying to work out a way through that when we've also monetized our healthcare system to make healthcare harder to get, which means a lot of that preventative healthcare, culture management, and individual work that we need to do comes with a price tag. So I might be able to get 10 free psychology sessions as part of a mental health plan, right? Good luck trying to find a psychologist that has number one, that bulk bills or has that there. You still need to pay a gap. And if you need a psychiatrist, regularly, you're still waiting, and there's still a massive gap. So if you are at risk or you are in a not good situation, it will get worse because you do not have the resources to do that early preventative stuff. And I think we're starting to see a lot of the issues that come from that now. And I think not universal free healthcare, the one payer system is a much better way to go than lining the pockets of health insurance companies, when realistically, if we look at the money that we paid the health insurance companies and we paid it to Medicare instead, everyone could have free healthcare all the time. And it would be better than the system that we have now.
Those are all very important things that you've spoken about.
Sorry, went on a tangent. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I'm just wondering, have you ever thought about going into politics?
It doesn't matter who goes into politics or what they do. In order to survive in such a toxic cesspool of failure, you would have to adopt the culture, the predominant culture within said cesspool of failure. So we've seen lots of really well-meaning people go into politics. But in order to get to the stage where you're elected and you have power, there is no way to do that on your own.
So what would you like to see at the grassroots level? What would you like to see more of in the world?
Oh, look, I flip between wanting to watch the whole world burn, but I'd need a lot of marshmallows for that. And I don't know. Look, I think I think little things make big differences. And I think that there's a lot of things that it's not so much next step, not so much, this is the next step and we're done now. I think everything we need to think of as a cycle. And I think by getting more involved and giving our politicians hell will help slowly change the culture. Trying to find ways to empower each other and lift each other up is a good thing as well. Having a society based on kindness. Another favourite line, I have a lot of these lines that I pick up as I go along. My other favourite line is, even though it's not my turn yet, I will keep applauding until it is. And we suffer from tall poppy syndrome here in Australia quite a lot. And
we do.
And for a lot of us, there's a lot of unlearning to do because society's taught us a heap of rubbish. So if we can look at those little things and go, okay, well, I'm not kind every day. I'm not perfect every day. And I certainly am not. But how can we use those times when we're not as learning experiences? What could I have done to, be a bit more kind in that situation? Or how could I have managed my day a bit better so I had some more capacity for that? Or how can I notice it early and just take myself away from people and have a little moment and then go back? Like lots of little things like that. I think that is how we're going to consistently change. And it will take time. And also normalizing changing your opinion when new information becomes available, or you've discovered the information you based that your opinion on was wrong. I'll talk about this a little bit because I think it's important. So originally, my autistic brain has gone, we're going to talk about gender quotas in business. And I'm going, gender quotas? That's stupid. I just want the best person for the job. Don't care who does it. Not everyone's like that. And there's more to it than that. So the concept of gender quotas, I was like, that's stupid. And then I actually went, why? Why do I think that's stupid? And I shut my mouth and I listened and I learnt, and I consciously went out of my way to learn, because a lot of things, this is amazing, particularly if you are a straight white man listening to this. This is going to blow your mind. Not everything is built for you. And people have different experiences in the world to you. When I looked at that, I then also looked at the research around more equality in boardrooms and businesses. Heaps of really amazing data that say that we get a wider range of better outcomes for everyone. A wider range of experiences means that we have better conversations around those tables when we're decision making. And we're representative of a larger cross-section of society, meaning that any target market that you work with is going to be happier with those results. And should your target market change, you're in a better position to bend, duck, weave, and do whatever. There is only fiscal benefits to having diversity in the workplace. Yet, we hire people that are like ourselves. That's our unconscious and sometimes conscious bias. We don't want people that are good. We want people we get along with that are like us. So, how do we how do we evolve? I think evolve is a better term. How do we evolve those spaces that for years and years and years and years and years and years, ever since day dot, have just employed people that are like them? We put quotas in. So if your boardroom needs, a majority vote to employ someone, and you're all white men over 50, and you're going, well, who's got the experience? Okay, well, it's a white guy over 50, because ever since he left high school through no fault of his own, he's been like the people that have been hiring him. So he's had plenty of opportunities to have lots of skills and to have, experiences. So when we put gender quotas in, it's forcing people to go, oh, fine, I'll give the opportunity to those people. They're not like me at all, blah, 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 whinge, 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 whinge. And then those people that have been given that opportunity, which they should have had an equal shot at anyway, are in the business. And hopefully, as we start to break that down, they'll go, oh, a chick we hired's actually really good. And she's got some really good, ideas that are different to mine. And, her experiences are actually quite valuable, and they've worked, and I never would have thought of that. So hopefully that encourages some self-reflection. We won't need quotas forever, because once we start to get diversity through there, it's self-perpetuating. And then the next thing that'll be really interesting to see is cultural diversity. Because as a multicultural society, we can't just ignore that, nor should we. We are now, thanks to communication, everything else, a global people. So having that diversity that is representative of the market is wonderful. And heaven forbid that we have something that is kind, ethical, equitable, that is also profitable. We also seem to be scared of win-win-win situations. It's like we've lost 50 IQ points and we go, well, if I can't see who's losing, it's probably me. So I need to find who's losing, rather than going, isn't this great? We're all winning, and it's okay for us all to win, and it's okay for us all to do well.
So what do you think about things like B Corporation? So that's where businesses are certified in terms of their values and their practices, a more ethical and kind organisation.
Look,
Or do you think we should just keep it really simple?
Do you know what?
And not have to get a star or a badge or a sticker.
The problem with corporate at the moment and a lot of businesses is it's performative, not real. So if you are entrenched in a toxic corporation or a corporation that just does what it does, or a business that just does what it does and you don't know any different, great. Be corporation. Some training, some education. If you want to seek it out, great, go for it. There's plenty of examples of businesses of all different sizes that are just ticking boxes. And that's exactly the same business underneath, just with a different box ticked or a different logo or a different ribbon or whatever. It's performative. And one of the things I think we're losing and being encouraged to lose in society is the understanding of nuance.
This has been such a wide-reaching and diverse conversation, and it would be really lovely to tie this up in a nice, neat bow. I'm not sure that we can.
No, easy. Just to give you an accurate summary of this whole conversation, the world is fucked. It is your job each day to go out into the world and unfuck yourself and try to unfuck it for others.
That's a great summary. Any last thoughts you want to leave us with?
Don't be a dick. Adam Hills, my favourite line. That is Adam Hills is just don't be a dick.
Can't top that.
Now, dear listener, it's your turn. Have you got something to add to the conversation? Then get in touch via the links in the show notes. Whether you have questions, a message of support, or resources that you think might help, we'd love to hear from you. And if by chance you know someone with a story that will inspire others, be sure to let us know. Your contributions help turn inspiration into action, drive positive change, and make life just that little bit better. And if this conversation inspired you to expand your worldview, head to HelloHuman.global to join the conversation.